Okay, so now I want to look at the damage that occurs
Okay.
when the molecular biological pumps work slower than the toxin load coming in.
Okay.
So first of all, I want to kind of make a very bold but true statement that it makes no difference what the neurotoxins are that come in. Once a neurotoxin is a neurotoxin, the expression of the illness is very similar.
Okay.
People have believed in the past that they can distinguish between lead toxicity and mercury toxicity and aluminum toxicity based on the symptoms. And it has all been disproven and shown that it's not true.
Okay.
Once you damage a nerve, you get the symptom is based simply on what was this nerve doing before that is not doing now.
Okay.
And whether the damage is then caused by this element or that element or this toxin or that toxin doesn't matter. It's just a matter of where does the damage occur in the system, and then the symptom is expressed accordingly. So first of all, I want to make very clear that you cannot tell from the symptom or symptom picture or presentation of the illness, whether it be autism or Rett syndrome or Asperger's, you cannot tell from that what the concoction of toxins was that came in.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to make that very clear, so that there's no guidance that the symptoms gives us in terms of concluding from that what the toxin was that came on board.
So that, really quickly, the two things that are really clear to you is that any of these kids that are on the spectrum at all, it is from a neurotoxic assault, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then you're going on to say that their presentation in no way indicates what that neurotoxic assault was.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. The only guide we have as what the toxin was is that we know which detox strategies succeeded and which ones didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, and the 4 points that I made before, that there is a strong scientific evidence that mercury is a key factor in this. There's some things in the damage that occurs in these kids that only mercury can do. Yeah? And so, and then beyond that, if mercury is the prime target or the prime culprit, then there's many things that have a synergistic effect with mercury. One is testosterone, I mentioned. Another one that Boyd Haley identified as zinc. So excessive supplementation with zinc, we have to be extremely cautious with that. Zinc in the presence of mercury toxicity is a further toxin. It's not helpful, and there's been a lot of damage done that I've seen in my office, or moms supplementing zinc based on faulty advice that they've been getting from.
Just really quickly, so they don't have to go through the entire
let me
guidelines
anticipate. Let me anticipate what you're going to say. Zinc is great for the immune system. Since autism has been misunderstood by many people as an immune system disorder and not as a neurotoxic disorder, the advice given was wrong. Yes, when you have an immune system disorder like AIDS, zinc is a great thing. But if you have a neurotoxic disorder caused by mercury, then zinc is a bad thing.
Any zinc.
Yeah. And so the trouble is to distinguish between the two. And as we will see in a moment when I discuss the damage that's done, that of course there is secondary immune system damage, which then will require fixing that.
Okay.
And so zinc may be important
Would you
for
get
some
small
children.
amounts?
Well, it's not the small amounts, but it needs to be balanced with copper. And it brings the copper issue in. When you give zinc, you deplete copper. Copper is a very important mineral if the child has the mold issue. Molds are suppressed by copper, and the molecular mechanisms that the cells have to fight molds are often copper-based, like the enzyme superoxide dismutase is a copper-dependent enzyme. That's what the macrophages are using to kill molds and kill certain bacteria. It's a copper-dependent enzyme.
So let's come back to those, definitely.
So when you give zinc, you do two things. You increase the mercury toxicity, the damage that mercury is doing, plus you're depleting copper. So you do two bad things and one good thing. And so, first of all, there needs to be a ratio. we need to bring the copper back in. Copper has
because these parents are
unlawful-
told, and I don't want to go into this too much. Let's table this for later. But basically, with the work of the Pfeiffer Institute, where their
Yeah.
copper's too high, their zinc is too low.
Yeah.
So let's table that, but definitely
Yeah,
get
but
to copper and
maybe
zinc supplementation.
maybe you can do it here and then take that section out. You know,
Okay.
I just want
Okay,
to
go
have a
ahead.
brief discussion on it. Much of the misunderstanding of copper comes from the fact that when you do a hair analysis on these children, they often show high levels in copper. High levels of copper are caused by two things. One, when the immune system is killing bugs, it shoots off its copper cartridges basically, and then the oxidized copper is now displaced into the connective tissue and is a waste product the body can no longer use, and it shows up in the hair. It can only be used if it's recycled. That means it has to be given its electrons back. It has to be reduced chemically, and by giving its electrons back, the body can use the copper again.
Okay.
But what the hair shows is displaced, used up copper that was used in the fight against an infection that's in there.
Okay.
And that's why it shows high in the hair, and has been misunderstood as copper toxicity. It's one of the worst mistakes that was done in our field in the last 10 or 15 years. Yeah. And so yes, the displaced copper is a problem in those tissues where it is displaced into. If it's the liver, yes, there's a problem. And the treatment for it, however, is to both give copper, because the body has used up its copper resources in the fight against the bugs. It needs the copper to further fight the infection. So we need to give copper, number one. Number two, it needs to be balanced against the zinc intake. Number three, the oxidized copper has to be reduced through intelligent antioxidant therapy. Usually high doses of vitamin C and vitamin E will do.
Okay.
And then, last point, the copper to be shuttled back into the system usually will require some homeopathic copper. The homeopathic copper enables the body to move a metal from an area where it's too high to areas where it's too low. Yeah, it opens up the distribution of it back in the system.
Okay.
And storage problems, like if it's called compartmentalization, when copper is compartmentalized into the connective tissue, where it's been deposited is useless for the body right now in the absence of free electrons. Yeah, there's not enough electrons to make the oxidized copper back into a reduced copper.
Okay.
The more electrons it uses, the more oxidized it is. And we have to
Okay.
give it its electrons back. In that form, it's bioavailable again. And to do that, we need antioxidants. Antioxidants are electron carriers. They give the electrons back.
Okay.
And we need homeopathic copper, so it can be loosened up in this compartment and can travel from this compartment away into the compartments that are copper deficient. The simple test that moms can do for this one is the RBC mineral test. Yeah,
Okay.
this RBC, the red blood cell mineral test,
Okay.
done at Metametrics Lab or Carbon-Based Corporation. This will reveal the copper deficiency. Yeah, it's a simple test. It's affordable. That looks at the mineral content inside the red blood cells. There's a very good representation of the overall body burden or body deficiency of it. And so far, in most autistic kids that we've done, they've been severely deficient on magnesium and copper.
Okay.
They're often mild deficient in zinc, but severely deficient in copper. And so the treatment then is to give a little bit of zinc and relatively more copper. Yeah. So let's leave the discussion here for now, and that
Okay.
part should be in a later part of our discussion.
Okay.
I want to look at the damage that is done when toxins build up in the nerve cells. So, first of all, metals and environmental toxins overall have an oxidative effect. They leave oxidative damage behind. Oxidation is the process by which electrons are stolen from areas.
Okay.
And the treatment for that is antioxidant therapy, which of course has been touted in autism for a long period of time. Well, what is this oxidative damage? In principle, it leads to inflammation, And the latest research on autism shows that children with autism have inflamed brains. Yeah? And we need to search for mechanisms how to disinflame them. And I believe that that's an area that has not been addressed enough in our field. I know that the primary brain anti-inflammatory is vitamin E in fairly high doses. I don't believe that anyone has explored that to a large degree. Now there is trouble with vitamin E has been that there is the alpha form, the beta form, and the gamma form of vitamin E. And it's been shown that the gamma form of vitamin E is a direct antidote to the alpha form of vitamin E. And what used to be a simple form of therapy has now become quite complicated. In general, it's believed that the gamma form is the effective anti-inflammatory form. And that has not been explored by enough of us physicians. If you give high enough levels of the gamma form of vitamin E, can we disinflame the brains of these children to get them functional quicker? Yeah? So I'm just putting this out here now as a working hypothesis that has just emerged in the last year or so, really as a major new way of looking at vitamin E. That came out of some of the Finnish study that shows when you give smokers vitamin E, they die faster of lung cancer than when you don't give them vitamin E. That was sort of came out of that, and the final conclusion was, oops, we gave them the wrong vitamin E. That was the vitamin E that blocked the effective gamma form of vitamin E. That was, they gave alpha vitamin E, alpha form, which blocked the gamma form, so actually depleted the smokers of the effective form of vitamin E that they had in their body. So the study thought, they gave them vitamin E, but they actually took their own vitamin E away.
They antidoted it.
Exactly, and out of that came this positive outcome that we now can use for the autistic kids, and so far it looks very promising. So the first mechanism that happens when toxins enter the brain is oxidative damage and inflammation. And many of the, what I call the secondary therapies, the symptomatic therapies for autism, are based on simple antioxidant strategies and anti-inflammatory strategies. Many of the homeopathics, the herbs, many of the programs that I've seen, many of the things that you've brought to me are addressing that issue. The second damage is there is not a single, there's several 10,000 enzymes that the body is using to guide its metabolic processes. For example, like the amino acids that the brain needs need to be acetylated. The brain doesn't use cysteine, it uses acetylcysteine. It doesn't use carnitine, it uses acetylcarnitine. There must be an enzyme in the cells that puts the acetyl group to the carnitine, or puts the acetyl group to the cysteine. Now, the body has several 10,000 of these enzymes, and this is what the genes are doing. The genes are providing a blueprint for how to make these enzymes. Now, mercury has never been shown to not affect any one of these enzymes, or to say it in a positive way. Mercury has only been shown to affect all of these enzymes, every single one of them, because every single one of them has somewhere in the enzyme is a sulfhydryl group, and there's several sulfur bridges that take the mercury into it, and it changes the shape, the configuration of the enzymes, and they work very much by the physical shape, the three-dimensional shape that they have in space. And as soon as the mercury latches onto it, it changes the shape, and the enzyme becomes useless or dangerous. It starts producing other things than what it should be producing. Okay. This is the main damage that occurs in the middle between toxins coming in and toxins going out, is the enzymatic damage, because the enzymes are very, very vulnerable. They're everywhere in the body, in every body fluid, on every membrane, inside the cell, outside the cell, close to the DNA, so methylation enzymes and so forth.